Thank you and welcome to our weekly 30-minute webinar. My name is Victor Verba and I'm a systems engineer over here at Variphy, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Today we are joined by my buddy Matt Sykes, aka Matty Ice, another systems engineer over here at Variphy. How's it going today, Matt?
Good, Vic. How about yourself?
Not too bad, man. It's deceptively nice looking outside today.
It is. The sun is shining.
So for today's webinar, Matt's going to walk us through how to leverage rate tables for some really kind of outside of the box reporting. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we'll start off with a quick overview of Variphy. We'll jump right into a live demo where Matt's going to guide us through how we can leverage rate tables to build some creative reports. We'll pause for some Q&A, get some questions answered during the demo. If you have any questions, please make sure you use the Q&A panel on the bottom right. And after Q&A, we'll reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see if you've won. Quick overview of Variphy. Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco Collab. We provide industry-leading CDR reporting and call analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, UCCX reporting, remote phone control, change management, and right around the corner, we're excited to announce that we're getting ready to roll out our Variphy Cloud offering. But the purpose of today's webinar is we're going to be focusing on how we can use rate tables. And if you have any other questions about any of the other features, or if you're interested in doing some beta testing for our upcoming cloud offering, please feel free to chat me up in the bottom right-hand corner in the Q&A panel. One more thing before we do get started. Variphy is now offering a service that provides managed consulting services to all of our customers. Variphy's SE team engages with you on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, unassisted reporting, dashboarding, configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you a dedicated SE that's there to do all the heavy lifting for you. It's a completely hands-off experience for you. So if you have any questions or want any additional information on our enhanced consultative services, feel free to reach out to your account manager, or like I said, feel free to chat us up in the QA panel on the bottom right-hand corner. So with all that said, Matt, let's go ahead and jump into it. Let me pass you the ball, buddy.
Okay, all right, thank you. Welcome everyone, Matt with Variphy here. For today's webinar, as Victor mentioned, we're going to look at some rate tables, but more importantly, we're going to be looking at one of our newer grouping styles. So let me just jump into the products, what's new. And in the current 12.2.3 GA, we have, it always eludes me. Here we go, new secondary group type for accounting call type. So what this is now going to give us is a bit availability for call types or location information that we can also use as call types off of device information per rate tables. And we're going to walk through that right now. So this actually has not been a grouping option within the product, but we're certainly grateful that it's here now. So let's actually go take a look at this. So what with accounting call type, I'm going to jump into one of my demos here. In our system configuration options, I'm going to go into the rate tables. Let's just touch and speak on the rate tables very briefly. Now, with our rate tables, certainly, yes, we could have something, a domestic rate table for all the NPA NXXs nationally here in the US, and there's quite a few of them. But certainly we can even be more abbreviated with our call types with these rate tables. For instance, something as simple as a basic table for inbound, outbound, and internal. A few others as well. I'm using one on this cluster here called MAT ABC. And from in here, I'm keying off of internals, inbounds, long distance, internationals, based off of digit recognition. So for instance, in my lab here, I have 4-digit internal DNs. I have 21 rate lines on this rate table to identify inbound, outbound, internals, internationals, et cetera. And how I'm doing that is by creating rate lines within these tables and then aligning I could use a digit information. I could use device information. I've got minimums and maximums and equals for digit lengths. So that's pretty much what I have utilized here for my inbound variety. So for inbound, my accounting call type here, I've got a minimum of 8 characters that are calling into the environment, answered by a final called party number of 4 digits. So that is what's going to give me some rate lines or give me rating for my inbound calls into this lab environment, as well as I've got internals 4 to 4s, 4 to 5s, and international going out to with 0, 1, 1, and 12 plus digits, and then some locals as well as long distance as well, and toll free I believe I have here. So with having these rate lines within a rate table, what we need to do secondarily after we have a rate table built is we need to assign it to the cluster. So I'm going to go back to my settings here, go into clusters CUCM, and we're going to take a quick look at what I have assigned on my test cluster here, which I believe is Mexico City. So let me go ahead and edit this real briefly. You can certainly have more than one rate table assigned at a time to your Variphy UCM cluster. And I'll scroll down to the page for that. So rate table priority. So we do list priority as well. So I have, a handful of different rate tables here with different ratings on them for different sequences. But the MAT ABC rate table that is selected, they do need to be in the selected list here to be utilized on the cluster. I could certainly have more than one if I wanted to. The priority is going to be top down. So if I had multiples, MAT ABC would still be first as far as the priority for the ratings, let's say. And then since now having a rate table on the cluster, then I can jump into, say, my call analytics. Let me just change clusters. And I can maybe just modify some quick history searches here. So for instance, I'll pick on maybe one of my hunt groups I like to key on, which is the 77280. I'll look at some data for the previous week or 7 days. Let's go ahead and view these results. Okay, so I can see internal calls coming over to my hunt. I can see external calls coming over to my hunt being handled. I see final call party number DNs with applicable MACs for my end users, as well as end user IDs, as well as departments that we're actually querying from Call Manager. Okay, that's all good. But now what about my rate table? I want to take advantage of that information. So I'm going to go to show hide columns here in the detail section. I don't have it in my my big list of detail columns here, but I do know that it's available on my list here in the middle. So I believe the call accounting is towards the bottom, which it is. I'm going to go off of call type, and I'm going to maybe use call description with an abbreviation. Now, this has definitely been around in Variphy for quite some time, so this is nothing necessarily new. The new piece I'm going to show you in a moment or two, but I just want to get a little foundation here. So I'll add those two columns actually to my listing here, and now I'll list them out. So I know I'm keying off of calls that are coming into my hunt group on the original called party number, and for all those calls for the previous 7 days, here they are as we saw them before, but now I've added in these two additional columns. So I can see the direction of the call type. I can see internal. I'm certain I can see inbound once I get down there. Here's inbound. I have codes for these as well off of the description field. Now with our new offering with the 1223, with the secondary option for accounting call type as a secondary grouper, we can take that information and then kind of play that right into a reporting need for it. So for instance, for this this hunt group here, if I wanted to maybe see who's all handling inbound, outbound calls, as well as internals here, certainly I can see them very granularly at the detail level here, but I can also then export these, and this will give me an option for all my report options here, if you're used to seeing these. Certainly, I'm going to go into my grouping section now, which isn't turned on, but I'm going to turn it on. But I'm actually going to I'm going to group it by something specific. So maybe I want to group by I don't know. Let's go off of how about a department? So I'll say originating or terminating, maybe department, and then maybe a secondary. Excuse me, a secondary group. Then I'll start off of accounting call type. So this accounting call type is going to match the call types that we have built in that rate table that is MAT ABC for inbound, outbound, international, long distance, and toll free. But I also want to see the departments that are handling these calls, and then based off of those, what calls types they're handling. So we'll go ahead and keep this. Don't think I need all this granular data, so I'll go ahead and suppress this. I'm going to go ahead and run this in HTML. So I'll just run this real briefly for the previous 7 days. All right, here's my report. Okay, I can see, oh, excuse me, let me zoom in here. So for the previous 7 days, I can see 99 calls have been presented to my hunt group of 77280. From them, okay, what departments are actually handling these calls? And what styles of calls are they actually interpreting? So we can see here, there's the maintenance department, we have the rentals department, and then we have their secondary call accounting call types, their accounting call types, excuse me. And we can see the inbound internals here. We can see what the total counts are, the averages. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. I can certainly also then bake in period over period data tables as well as charting for the primary level with the department as well as the secondary accounting call type level, which we're going to get to it a little further. But maybe I wanted to look at something maybe that's just not inbound. Maybe I want to see some outbound stuff as well. So original called party number, I'll say starts with at least say 6 or 7 characters because I know my internal lab only has 4 to 5. I will use starts with. I will run searches on these call types. Okay, so these are going to be my environment making outbound calls. So where the original called party number is greater than 6 or 7 characters, takes all of my internal calls out of the equation. And then we can see what style of calls these are. You can see that these are mainly all long distance calls. Actually, some of these are probably trunk to trunks, but certainly we can see the ease of use to add in that accounting call type at the detail level. Okay, I'm going to switch gears and just jump over to the dashboard that I have representing some of this data off of that based rate table for that secondary grouping type, which is accounting call type. So I'll let these build out here real briefly. So within this lab, I'm keying off of some data elements for the previous week, chopping it by looks like yeah, day of week. Oh, excuse me, date and then hour of day. But then as well as I'm using the those accounting call types on a secondary grouping. So we can see here I am using accounting call type. I can see these call directions that I have built in, baked into that MET ABC rate table, and now they're very easily able to show up on a grouping widget within the dashboard. So let's edit this real briefly and we can take a look at what my primary grouping type is. Well, it is accounting call type. And we know that my accounting call type off of the MET ABC rate table is going to be inbound, outbound, international, long distance, and toll free. We saw that. I've told it to rank it from highest to lowest. And then I've just added on three statistical types of data elements that I want to see for them. Okay, so we can certainly see the long distance count, the average call duration, and total call duration for all of these call types that matched for the previous week. Secondarily, I keyed off of, well, the same information right next door here in a distribution widget. Same data elements, we can see the same summarizations here, same data. I just flexed it into a different widget style. This is our distribution widget. Very easy to hover over and see the counts for them, or if we need to strike something out and replot any graph, we certainly can from the legend. But down below, I've kind of followed them down a little further. So I'm using a maintenance department and a rentals department. Now I'm using that rate table and that accounting call type, which is now new for us to group on. So I can very easily, for this maintenance department, I can see what all their traffic is. So these there's 1,067 calls. Here are the 5 call types that are making those up. Same with the rentals department over here, we can see those. And then just below that, I just once again copy them down and flex the widget style just to distribution so it can be seen in a different representation of this donut chart. But then also I can still even further more, getting outside of the accounting breakdown, the newer accounting breakdown, just break down those users. The same search set functionality that I'm seeing all the way down here. I'm using the accounting call type on these 2 middle ones, but I'm not down here. I'm actually grouping on an end user ID. So very easy to kind of delegate exactly what mode of operation I want to use to see the content. Do I want to see end user IDs? Do I want to actually see what the call style usage is in the environment over this department? And then breaking it down by those end user IDs as well, which I normally do. Certainly we can replace any of these column labels with our custom labels now, so that's not an issue there. But I do have another better example as well. So this is certainly using call direction, call types, long distance, inbound, international, inbound. But also I've got another lab here where I'm using some other bits and pieces where I'm actually using call type direction and maybe device pool. So we'll take a quick look at this report here. Now let me just zoom in for everyone's eyes. So on this report here, I'm using the accounting call type, and I'll actually run us through that real briefly. So that is using call type direction. So within this UCM analytics report, I'm keying off of a handful of things here for my offices, but I'm breaking it down by its primary grouping for, this is primarily inbound traffic as well, I will preface. So I'm grouping this by the terminating device pool that's handling these inbound calls. But then secondarily from there, because I actually in this lab, I've got, maybe 300 device pools for remote locations across the states, but I break it down by an accounting call type. Now in this lab, I'm using accounting call type differently. So let's actually go take a peek at that. Now within these rate tables in this lab, I have a couple rate tables, just 2 to speak of really. Once they load up, it's going to be the accounting call types and then a basic one. The basic one, I believe we saw similarly on the other lab, just inbound, outbound, internal, toll-free, and internationals. But I want to view and edit the accounting call type one that I'm going to be using here for this one. So in this one, I'm actually using digit references, could also use device references as well, to pull back maybe some departmental information now for these rate lines, and then use these kind of departments as my call accounting call type, let's say. Now, certainly in a lot of environments, know that the call manager departments are defined within the end users. But for this example here, I'm facilitating a UCM environment where there are no end user department definitions, and I'm reusing digits within the CDR to extrapolate these departments for the reports. Certainly, we could do a lot of different things. They don't have to be departments. They could be a lot of different organizational codes, cost centers, divisions, and stuff like that. So I have a handful that are in here meeting certain digit elements that I have within this lab. And then from there, then we go ahead and run one of those reports that I was just showcasing a moment ago. Let me just jump to it. And it was direction. So in this report, I'm keying up my search set for my specifics, but in the grouping section where the power is coming from and the option for this accounting call type on the secondary, this is not actually off of call direction. This is going to be off of those departments that I have embedded within that accounting call type rate table. So within that report, I go ahead and run that, and I get something similar to this. So I'm looking for all my offices and all my departments across, the nation, let's say, at all my remote locations. I can see what my high-level statistical count is. But then in the grouping section, since I'm now using an accounting call type as a secondary grouping method, I can easily insert these identifiers into the report groupings. And it looks like I've got a couple mixtures here because I do have inbound and internal and international. So not pay attention to the HQ because I actually believe they are only using the human resources, and I'll explain why these are look a little off. But for instance, like the 001, I can see all of the departments that I have built into that rate table, that call accounting rate, for all these device pools. So I'm chopping down my top 10 device pools, listing out their departments, what are their high level counts broken down by these departments. And then from there, if I scroll past these top 10, then I can get a breakdown of these same device pools and their sub departments for period over period analytics. So I've got, by day of week here. I'm certain I've got hour of day down below. Here's the 24-hour clock based off of the same device pools and then their sub departments. And then for that, then we can even scroll down even further. That's the PMs, excuse me. And then we can chart all this information as well in an HTML and or PDF. So I'm charting here the CCM device pool of the headquarters. This is by day of week, and then certainly you can get down to excuse me, still by the terminating device pool there, and then by day of week. Okay, changing device pools. Okay, so the hourlies are underneath. Excuse me, here they are. We can certainly say what these are. I have the secondary grouping turned off. If we needed to see the breakdowns for these departments over time, we can certainly include those. I am not including those at the moment. Let me see. Yep, because I've turned off the show secondary on the charts. But if I wanted to see all those department-based layouts for this content graphicalized down below, certainly we can turn that on. Okay. Now the reason, I'll just take your eyes here. Now the reason, and this is a great example actually for publishing purposes, the reason I actually have human resources under this HQ device pool and then the direct call direction types, let's say inbound, internal, international, long distance. This department of this device pool actually only has one department, which is HR, and it's actually conflicting with my other rate table. So just to show you real briefly, on this cluster, I actually have two different rate tables. One is actually assigned a higher priority than the other. And we'll just check that out right here. On the last lab, sure, I only had Matt ABC, but in this lab, I'm using a couple different ones. So let's just briefly edit this cluster just to show your eyes. Okay, so yeah, I'm using a basic actually, and the basic is actually taking the priority here. I should probably have the accounting call types at a higher priority, but I didn't in this go around. The basic was at the top. So thusly, that is why I have multiples in here that are kind of not conflicting necessarily. There's matching different rate elements. So certainly we can take one off if we needed to be more finite, but certainly you can have more than one running, and certainly priority is going to be dictated by the cluster settings within here. Okay, so this is certainly very good to have. From a report standpoint, I definitely have a couple customers I've built this out, and it's been very powerful for them. Definitely all these grouping headers, device pool, accounting call type, these can certainly be relabeled within the application. That's not a problem. I actually have custom lines for it, labels, excuse me, for it, but I just did not choose to include them when I ran this report. However, in this lab, I do have a dashboard built for it using those custom labels. So I'm keying off of, since I'm using device pool here, I've been highlighting these. I'm highlighting the top 10 for all device pools, only strictly for the finance distribution department. So across all my device pool locations, I can certainly see how they're performing against one another over the current previous week. I could shrink this or lengthen this for time frame, most certainly. We could also, excuse me, and then show the distribution of the tops of all these 330 some calls that are coming into this environment, so that we can break up and see what the device pools are handling the most content. Looks like it's the contact center device pool on this one, but then also we can break it down by those rate table rate lines. So in this, I'm keying off of a specific office code of 354 for one of my device pools here. Then I'm saying reference, what all of my departmental information as far as the statistics that are being handled therein. And since I was using both of those rate lines earlier and basic was on top, had more priority, that's why we see the inbound and internal here. But in a production environment, I would be going with one or the other, not both. Okay, and then from this very easily, then we can slice, the period over period, counts based off of day of week, hour of day, but then also graphicalize and maybe show a distribution for these either the call types or the departments that are handling these calls. And this one, I believe I'm only using the top 5. So let me just flex this out real briefly, which I am. Yeah. Let me say top 10 here. It is including my call direction types as well as my department references for this location. But this is Office 354. So let's actually take a look for Office 354. And I have an Office 354 already broken down in this report here from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. I could see the call types that have been made over the time frame. Oops, excuse me. Let me go a little higher. Here we go. This day of week. I want to go very high to the main grouping for that time frame. Okay, so for the Office 354 device pool, I can see that 627 calls have come into this environment, to this device pool over this time frame, which was the previous 7 days. I am listing out all the departments that handle those calls that made up the 627. So that is thusly what this report, excuse me, this widget should be entailing here, the 354. Okay, so very well. We can see the departments that are handling these calls. Once I take out the call direction information, see that customer service is leading the pack of those 627. It is 543 of that 627 that we saw from the report. But very easy to see how I can strike these other non-needed pieces out of the widget elements if I needed to. But certainly I can just go right back to the settings gear within the cluster and turn off the basic or change its order of priority. Okay. All right, so that kind of covers the options that we have for the accounting, the secondary accounting call type. But we actually have more in the hopper to go ahead and enhance this feature down the line a little later in the year. But definitely, I mean, it doesn't have to be limited to to call direction or department information. Certainly, the rate lines themselves, they can match certain device patterns, certain groups, certain locations, partitions, device pools as well. Obviously, that's what I showcased here. But definitely, there's a lot of various options within Call Manager that we can use to package rate lines for them. So whether or not we want to be geographically based, to where the department based, what dealer's choice based, certainly we can build rate lines within the rate tables and then include them for secondary groupings off of predetermined CUCM metrics off of some of the device information. So I do believe that should wrap up the content that I do have for this newer accounting call type, as well as the rate tables and all that good fun stuff that goes with it, as well as I always like to showcase my custom labels. So you can see me hovering over certain pieces that I have already relabeled within these widgets, and that's kind of standard throughout the product when utilizing standard custom rate tables, which I am in this dashboard here. I'm using Matt's lab set, and actually even in the reports, I do believe I included an appendix. Get all the way to the bottom here. I did. Okay, so I have about maybe 20 or 50 or so different rate lines here. We can include the custom labels as an appendix on the back end of reports. I can see what we're translating, calling party number 2, et cetera, as well as the search criteria labels, and then the groupings as well. Here's grouping labels, accounting call type. There we go. Calling that department, and et cetera, with combinations all the way down, and even including custom attributes as well, which I have covered on previous webinars. So, all right, everyone, thank you for your time today. This is Matt with Variphy, and this is the new secondary grouping option for accounting call type from Variphy in our new 12.2.3 GA.
Excellent. Awesome job as always, Matt.
Mhm.
Great way to kind of use those tables, again, outside the box, rather than using them for just standard rate lines. Being able to
Exactly.
build some organizational type units, utilizing those rate lines and providing some of that higher level summary.
Exactly. It
So
gives
we do
it,
have a couple questions. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say yes, and most certainly, Vic. It does give us a little more ammunition, let's say, because certainly one of our last webinars I did was, I believe, on org-based building org-based reports based off of custom attributes off the CUCM end user profiles. This now gives us another option to use other options that are in Call Manager, where we need to be maybe a little more digit-based or maybe a little more device-based, but certainly another fantastic add-on to the Variphy suite.
Excellent. A couple questions for you, Matt.
Mhm.
This one's coming in from Jim. Jim asks, in your dashboard, can you show costing? So I think when you were showing some of your grouping there, you had accounting call type. Are you able to show the costing in there for, like, I'm assuming the local long distance and things like that?
That is a great question, Jim. And yes, we most certainly can. So for if I had it denoted as such in my rate table, we certainly could. So let me go ahead and edit one of these guys right here that is using the accounting call type secondary breakdown, and scroll down here. Correct, we are using accounting call type as the primary on this one. But yes, I can certainly, where is it here? I believe accounting call type is towards the bottom. Let's see here. There it was.
Perfect.
Accounting total cost. Yes, we can certainly add that in there, and I'll add it in there right now. But unfortunately, I don't have any costing, I believe, associated. Oh, I do on the long distance. Okay, looks like we do. But yes, most certainly we can include that costing. And where does that costing come from? That does come from the rate table. So I'll just revisit my rate table real quickly just to show you that. But definitely we can provide costing for billbacks in these group scenarios from the dashboard perspective within the widgets and or the reports themselves, the analytic reports themselves. So let me go and fish out one of the international guys. And I'm going to go on a limb and say it's probably him. And that's matching. And yes, I am billing 3 cents per 60 seconds. So this is where the costing can be associated on these rate lines within the table, as well as a lot of other information I kind of skipped over. So if we needed to find city and state for these rate lines, we certainly can, as well as special descriptions that may want to be seen from the dashboard or report results.
All right, and then another follow-up from Jim. He wanted to know is there a limit to how many rates you can have in a rate table?
Another great question, Jim. I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a cap on it, but definitely within my environment here, I do have a domestic rate table that has been shared out with some customers before that correct. It's got 123,000 rate lines on it.
That's a lot of rates.
The more, yes, the more rates, the more querying the application engine has to do. So I wouldn't say it bogs it down. It just makes the return results a little slower. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's a cap, but I would be leery of adding over 123,000 rate lines, just to say the least.
Yeah, I guess point being is, yeah, if you're going to have 120,000 rate lines, you got to make sure you got the resources to handle 120,000 rate lines.
That is correct. Yes, definitely system resources are needed.
All right. So, hey, again, thank everybody for attending today. We really appreciate everybody's support. Let's go ahead and announce let me share out my screen here and announce our winner for this week's webinar here.
Drum roll.
Drum roll. And the winner is, there we go, Mohammed Corby. Mohammed, congratulations. We'll go ahead and be in touch and make sure that we get you that $50 Amazon gift card. And again, I want to thank everybody for attending today. And please do register. Our next webinar next week is going to be how Variphy determines calling scenarios. That's going to be hosted by myself and Magic Mike Stratton over here at Variphy. And we're going to be taking a deep dive into, some of the calling scenarios. What is an abandoned call? What's a call to voicemail? How are transfers determined and things like that. So we're going to be taking a deep dive into some of the calling scenarios. So again, appreciate everybody's time today. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you, everybody.
Take care, all. Bye-bye.